Hey everyone, welcome to Translines Show and Tell episode 2, where we talk about some of the things that we as a team are keeping an eye on here in Miami and around the world. So I'm going to start by telling you about the campaign that we just launched for coronavirus and mobility and some of the things that we're advocating for as this crisis continues. So we're advocating for accessible testing for all because the test sites right now, you can only access them in a car, which means that all the people who rely on transit, walking, and biking as their primary mode of transportation have a harder time getting tested. We're advocating to keep Miami moving safely. So 36% of transit commuters in Miami-Dade County are essential workers, and they are still relying on transit right now. Also, we're advocating to start working on the recovery now. Mobility is going to be such a huge component of addressing our community's needs as we come out of this crisis. So you can find out all about all the things I talked about, get it? At transalliance.miami/coronavirus. And we also have a webinar coming up on Tuesday, April 21st, 1 to 2 o'clock. You can sign up at transalliance.miami/webinar. There's only 20 slots left right now, so sign up as fast as you can. That's transalliance.miami/webinar. And guys, if you just want to talk a little bit about this campaign, and you guys did a lot to put this together. Any thoughts on what we're doing and how this is moving forward?
I just wanted to point out that a big part of it is also the chapters that we have right now. We have a City of Miami chapter and a Miami Beach chapter, and they are a big part of this campaign at the moment. But we're also looking to have a countywide meeting. So again, if that's something you'd be interested in joining, just shoot us an email, a message, and we'll let you know when the next one is. So.
Cool. Okay. Let's switch over to Maria.
Great. Thanks, Az. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to talk about something that Az was mentioning, which is that we can start working on the recovery as it relates to mobility right now. So one of the things that we have been keeping an eye on is that in Reno, Nevada, their Regional Transportation Commission has been sort of giving the green light to a lot of mobility projects right now. So specifically, they allowed their local transportation department to continue working on a BRT extension. So that's bus rapid transit extension in their downtown. And this is really important because it shows that, despite everything that's happening with coronavirus, a lot of essential workers can still continue working on really crucial projects, right? And these departments are keeping social distancing between their workers. They're like limiting crew sizes, and they're making sure that their workers aren't being negatively impacted by this, while still sort of continuing to work on mobility projects that when there's a lot of traffic, when there are a lot of people outside, it's generally not possible. So it's been proven that cities can continue improving their mobility infrastructure even in times of pandemics, and I'm hopeful that perhaps in Miami we can also do that, right? As many of you know, the governor actually green-lighted other construction projects related to transportation a couple of weeks ago. So there's hope that we can also do similar things here in Miami that are related to our own transit network, especially to improving the bus system.
Yeah, I mean, the specific opportunity in Miami right now is that usually when you implement a redesign, things are very difficult because so many people are still using the system. Right now, we don't have a lot of people using transit right now. And the Better Bus project increases access to frequency, it increases access to jobs, which is especially important coming out of this. So it's a great way to help move forward coming out of this crisis even stronger for mobility. Anything else to add, guys, before we move on?
Yeah, well, beyond buses, I think this is also a great time to install biking infrastructure, especially as you're talking about the denser areas like downtown where the disruption in traffic is such a big concern. Is there are these bike master plans that are out there, and a big part of it is well, we can't really block traffic to paint this lane and stuff like that. But now it's a great opportunity because there is no traffic and we have such an increase in cyclists. All of these people who are getting exposed to being out on the streets, those are people who will probably continue to use the lanes in the future once traffic comes back.
Yeah, in addition to also just any type of like pedestrian improvement that could be done, because that's something that's also part of this Reno project. They're widening some sidewalks along this corridor as well. So you know, there's a lot to be done, and they're using this time more efficiently than, you know, maybe they could have otherwise.
Cool. Okay, let's hand over the screen to Derek.
Sweet. Hey guys. So for my show and tell this week, I'm going to be highlighting a conversation. Hold on, let me share my screen right quick. But I'm going to be highlighting a conversation about a decision we made a long time ago to run I-95 through Overtown, which is a historically Black neighborhood in Miami. And the first thing I want to show you is this tweet from Jorge Damian de la Paz, where he's basically showing you all the people that were displaced by this one section, this one interchange of I-95 right here, all these houses. And hold up. You can see this is Overtown in the 40s right here. It was a vibrant place, man. Like a lot of art, a lot of music, a lot of people just out in the streets enjoying life. Things we don't really see now, unless you're talking about I guess Wynwood will be an example. But one of the big things you notice right there is that the people in the streets are more so occupying it than the cars and stuff like that. But right here in the 60s, we had the decision where we could either run I-95 along the Florida East Coast Railroad. And that idea was shot down, and it was instead decided that it would run along 7th Avenue, which went right through the heart of Overtown. That displaced thousands of residents. They went to places like Liberty City. They went to Little Haiti. They went to down south around like Perrine, Richmond Heights, where I live. And that has me thinking about today, where a lot of these people that were displaced, like this man right here, this is an I-95 overpass that replaced the street that he used to grow up in, the street that he grew up on in Overtown. But it has me thinking today about the effects that may be having on people's health, considering that we're seeing a lot of reports around the country that people in Black and brown communities are dying at a higher rate from COVID-19 related complications. And a big part of that has to do with people's exposure to air pollution. And it kind of has me thinking, these decisions that were made so long ago to put a highway right through people's neighborhoods, and how that exposure to pollution and exhaust throughout generations has led to people living with COPD and asthma, other cardiovascular diseases. And it's just interesting as this pandemic kind of makes clear how our society is not prepared in a lot of ways to be sustainable. And as we move forward, it's like, what do we have to fix from the past to move forward into the kind of Miami, into the kind of country, into the kind of world that we want to live in, where these people aren't forgotten and left behind to suffer worse than others. You know?
So talking about fixing the past, you have a lot of cities right now that are putting their highways underground or getting rid of them altogether and reclaiming that space for people and sort of righting the wrongs of the past. Who here thinks that the I-95, like there's a future that 20, 30 years from now, we can actually get rid of the I-95 and actually move towards a more multimodal society where we don't have to do this to communities in the future? Yes. I totally think we can. I totally think we
well,
should.
in San Francisco, actually, after, I forgot, there was like a major earthquake, you know, like I forgot exactly when the time was, but there was a major earthquake that essentially just destroyed their highways. And instead of rebuilding, they just got rid of the highway in, you know, like the entire stretch of the highway in front of like the pier. And now it's like one of the most like vibrant and like most like beautiful places like in San Francisco, and it's like extremely multimodal. And you would have never guessed that there used to be like a highway just going straight, you know, straight through the.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, they
even
want to
New
take
York.
it further. They want to take it further with the Embarcadero. Let's turn to well, go ahead, Derek.
No, I was just thinking, like, yeah, like we have all this infrastructure there that we kind of built a long time ago, and like it's like, what would we do with it? Like, would we be able to repurpose it? Like, would we be able to turn this into something that works for the communities that surround it, or would removing it be a bigger? Would that cost more than doing something else that will actually help people? You know what I'm saying? But it's like we have options now that we're looking at all this empty space lying there with the lack of commuter traffic going back and forth every day, and it's like, you know, what do we do?
Just so that people don't think we're absolutely crazy, we're going to put some resources in the show notes to show how other cities have done this and we're not completely losing our minds. And speaking about other cities who've actually done amazing things, Marcia, go ahead.
Okay, let me just share my screen really quickly. So I'm going to take you guys to Ghent in Belgium. And Derek was talking about barriers that have ruined communities and destroyed, like completely you know, they had to move elsewhere. And I want to talk about barriers that have actually revitalized communities. So in Ghent, they've turned the city car-free, and it's not really truly car-free. So basically what they did is like their city got divided into 7 segments, and you have the city core where only taxis and service cars are allowed. So anyone doing deliveries and things like that. And then in the other 6 segments of the city, what they've done is that you can bring your car, but you cannot go from one segment to the other. So they put barriers in place. And if you want to go from one place to the other in a car, you need to just take this ring road, which makes it incredibly inconvenient. So like, you know, these divisions, they look like plant pots, they look like play areas. Sometimes they're just lines on the road that are enforced by cameras and are enforced fines, things like that. And what has happened is that in 2012, 22% of people were using bikes to get around Ghent. Now in 2019, 35% of people, after this was implemented in 2017, that was their goal for 2030. So it's a true testament of like, if you put the infrastructure, people will come. They've done things like bike roads in which a car is not allowed to overtake a bike, and the speed limits are very, very low, just 18 miles per hour. And then things like this river used to be covered and turned into a parking lot. And they completely brought it back, which, you know, beyond biking and walking, and has just made the city much livelier. And basically it's like, you know, you get this city that is just, business is booming, people are incredibly happy, everyone talks about like how quiet it is and a sense of calm, which is, I think, is something all of us are experiencing right now when we look at our windows. And, you know, here we are in Miami, where like, this is what defines us. This like choking traffic where you don't talk to anyone and everyone's pissed off and everyone is screaming. And how can we get this to turn into this, which is also Miami today in Ocean Drive. This was taken by one of our advocates, where it's just like cycling and walking and like a beautiful, you know, lively city that we can be. So that's my show and tell.
Makes me cry. Gives me tears.
No, it has.
I just want to point out these people are not socially isolating. We need more empty streets for everyone to spread out.
Thank you, Marcia.
But you know.
But no, see that, like, it's good to see, and it has me thinking like how simple would it be to put up barriers, like temporary barriers, like we do it for parades and things like that. We can have that be how we implement that for now, and then we can just make them more permanent as we move along, like with what works. But there's no reason why we can't mobilize ourselves to start like trying this out immediately. You know what I'm saying? Like cones and barriers will get people to understand the new rules of the road while they're on it.
Right. Okay, guys, we are out of time. Although someday we are going to organize a field trip to Ghent, and that can be Translines' 2021 activity. But if you enjoyed this video, if you would like to support us, please become a patron. Becoming a patron means that you give us as low as $2 a month. It really helps support our organization and keeps us going. So that's transalliance.miami/join. Become a patron, and we'll see you next week. Bye.